This video is for people who feel more sensitive during the full moons, new moons, eclipses, and find themselves going through an acceleration of change and transformation that seems to always correlate with the incoming full moon or new moon, etc. You might start to feel the changes within yourself, within your body, your sensitivity heightening, maybe even days or sometimes even a week or more before the full moon itself. And it can sometimes feel like you're being taken for a ride, like your life is kind of spinning out of control and you're finding yourself making these mistakes and attracting into your life these different types of lessons. And the energy of the full moon can feel quite overwhelming and chaotic at times. But as I'm sure you've already experienced in your own life and on your own journey, a tremendous amount of good, positive change, healing, transformation can be birthed from this chaos. I love what Friedrich Nietzsche says about chaos. He says something along the lines of, one must have chaos in one's life to birth a dancing star. And what I found for me is that there's always a method to the chaos. There's always a purpose to it. And a lot of times what can seem like incoming changes and challenges are just the beginnings of that dancing star trying to emerge in our life. I've also found, and not sure about you, but I found that each full moon has its own particular type of lesson. Like there are these collective opportunities to learn certain soul lessons or something during the full moons. And I find that when I can pick up on them and become aware of them, then it's like you have a roadmap within the chaos and you can really take advantage of the tremendous amount of transformation potential within each full moon. And that's what this video is. It's me sharing as best I can the different themes that you might be going through right now with this particular full moon. In this case, it's happening February 24th, 2024. It's a full moon in Virgo. And this video is going to share with you the 5 themes that you might be going through right now. If I haven't said already, my friend, welcome to the channel. My name is Victor Oddo. It's an honor to have you, and I will see you inside. Theme number 1, heart walls melting. You might start to finally let in some of the goodness and sweetness and love and abundance, recognition that you've been wanting, that you've been deserving. A lot of times it's not a matter of us not being good enough. It's a matter of us believing we're not good enough, and consequently we kind of create that effect for ourselves. And from this sort of disposition, we go through life trying to get our needs met. And it's kind of like we're calling things in and then we push them away when they come. And we don't know we're doing this, obviously. We do it in a fairly unconscious way where we somehow, in some way, sabotage the situation, only furthering that reinforcement of this initial belief that, well, I guess I kind of already knew that. I kind of already expected that, to be let down. Let down is the best way I can put it. But anyway, this full moon might finally start to help you wake up to the different sort of ways you're creating this illusion for yourself. It reminds me of a time I was doing this breathwork training. It was like a certification program, and my partner and I were told we have to practice this particular technique of consoling one another. So we'd each take turns pretending to be going through like a vulnerable process. And when it was my turn to pretend, I started like pretending to cry. And then this person was practicing the technique of like putting her hands on my chest and like coming closer and letting me know, hey, I'm here for you. It's okay. It's okay to feel. Your feelings matter. You know, that kind of thing, the things we were taught. And anyway, even though I was practicing, I noticed what happened inside of myself was once this person started being like really nice to me and consoling me, I closed myself off. I literally felt myself erect these heart walls. And practically speaking, what that really amounted to was a physical tightness, a contraction, almost also ignoring, trying to like ignore what was happening. And I thought to myself, well, that's interesting. Why are you doing that? You're in this like cool situation to receive some nurturing from a very nice person. What's going on here, Vic? Why are you blocking this out? And that's the $1 million question. Why? Why was I blocking it out? I didn't get an answer right away, but I started asking that new question. A much more empowered, conscious question. Why am I blocking this away? Why are you blocking it away? You might start to find out why that is in your own life. And for most of us, it's because there was a time when we didn't have these walls and we let somebody in and they hurt us. They disappointed us. And it was unexpected and it was painful. I remember when I was like in 11th grade, I think. I had this huge crush on this one girl and I thought I loved her. I thought it was love. It was like that. You know how it is when you're a teenager. It was so real. And I thought this girl was out of my league. So I never even expected to like date her or anything. And then something happened where she finally, after a while, she became interested in me and we started dating. And for a very little brief time in history, I felt complete. I felt not just complete. I felt like I was living amongst the stars. I felt like happier and more amazing than I thought was even humanly possible. It was like I drank a big cup of love and it felt that way. And then out of the clear blue sky, her friend broke up with me, on her behalf through like some kind of like not Facebook at the time, we had AOL instant messaging. I found out this little friggin' message, boop, you're done. So-and-so's done with you. And I'll never forget like that, the feeling I had. I had to call her to confirm. I said, listen, your friend just told me what you said. This can't be true. Oh no, it is true. I'm moving on. And anyway, I'll never forget, even at the time, I recognized it as some type of like, almost a trauma. I remember thinking like, this is a level of pain, like emotional pain of a kind never yet experienced, that I don't know if I can handle this. I remember just melting kind of into my parents' chair, just sitting there like recognizing my inability to really cope with and process the pain. And I know you probably felt that pain. Maybe it wasn't in a high school relationship. Maybe it was. For some of you, it probably was. Maybe it was for mom and dad. Maybe it was later in life when there's not someone, but some situation you trusted and you were kind of attached to maybe, and really like, at least you thought you were fulfilled from. And then all of a sudden, whoosh, that situation is like the rug is swept out from under you. And as much as you want to love again, as much as you want to let the goodness in again and feel that way again, all your mind can think of is the pain. They can think of, I'd rather like block out this love because it's not worth it to me to get caught off guard like that again. I can't feel that pain ever again. Is usually something we decide at some point in life. And then these walls come up. And it's unfortunate because that literally prevents us from getting all the things we want. We start to go through a spiritual awakening. We realize, I want more depth in my life. I want more love in my life. I want more authentic relationships in my life. I want more abundance. I want more freedom. I want more purpose. I want to feel the connection of God and source in my life. And then we block it all out with these walls. And it's unfortunate. But the cool thing is we aren't alone on this journey. And sometimes the stars align, if you will. The full moons pass over and they can shed light upon this particular highly important area of our lives. And you might have that benefit right now. And to really be able to do that, though, it takes a very high level of like ownership. Because it's so easy to blame the outside world for how we're feeling on the inside. Because sometimes it seems like it's this very causal type of reaction What came first, the chicken or the egg? You know, got a bunch of like angry chickens laying these eggs, dropping them in our lap. So it's hard to really say, oh yeah, this is my stuff. But I think it is. I think it is. I think we're the chickens and we don't know it. I think it's our creation, obviously. It's our manifestation, our karma, if you will. And regardless, if we know that for a fact or not, it's all kind of speculation. It seems, when I'm in higher states of awareness once in a while on psychedelics or in meditation, it definitely seems that's the actual truth. But regardless, if we just pretend it is, if we don't really know, at the very least, it allows us to finally take charge of the situation and take charge of our choices, take charge of where we put our attention in life. And if we can own our feelings, then we can learn about them. Why are they really there? Where are they really coming from? And then we can start to get some real breakthroughs here and maybe get some healing along the way. And then start putting out a new energy, a new frequency, a new expectation. And also simultaneously being willing to trust our intuition. Trust our intuition to help us avoid the painful learning lessons. We didn't have our intuition wasn't as on point as it is now. So the situation has changed quite a bit. And I think if we can really figure out why our walls are up in the first place. It's still a work in progress for me. I've gotten lots of insight for sure, but I still got walls. There's layers of healing with this, but I'm taking responsibility for them. It's something I'm doing, and I'm willing to see why I'm doing that. And because I have that kind of openness, I've been shown, okay, here's where you're doing it, buddy. And it's sometimes not easy to look at, but it's allowed me to lower my walls and experience more love that I and we all deserve. So I wish you well. I wish you the ability to do all that, because I think, this full moon really is going to allow us to be like happier in a very, very real way. Number 2, it's going to seem like a complete contradiction to number 1, but lingering patterns coming to a head. There may have been like dysfunctional patterns, I would say, that you're somewhat involved with, maybe not the creator of, but kind of involved with, within your relationships, within your business, within some important area of your life that you've kind of been seeing for a long time, but hoping you were mistaken, maybe hoping it wasn't the case, hoping you wouldn't have to deal with it, whatever it is. And this full moon, as full moons oftentimes do, it might bring it all to a head, to where you're like, okay, I can't lie to myself any longer. And this happens a lot with relationships. This happened to me a lot years ago with like my high school friends. I've talked about it before, but it's very relevant. It's been a theme, honestly, for the last few full moons and new moons even. But it really seems like especially a theme now. So even though I thought to myself, you've already talked about this a great deal, bro, I think it's important to put in there, because it does feel like a very big theme right now, where you in your own way might be experiencing like a reorganization within some of your relationships due to your growing awareness about what's really happening underneath the surface, which is what really matters. I've met a lot of people who can talk a good game, but when it's not really authentic, when it's not really coming from like their truth, then it doesn't really matter. Anyway, this is one of those things where I'm just talking about myself. I admit, I'm going to pull back here and give more of an objective sharing here for you. I had this psychic a long time ago named Kevin. He's deceased now, unfortunately, but he was one of the rare, like really badass psychics I've seen in my life. And he was so good. He actually helped the police one time solve a murder case, believe it or not. And this guy was like impossible to get into. You had to call every month this one number. And whenever you called, it'd be busy. But it was like Kevin was taking readings for the whole next month. And you're lucky to get in. You finally, like after 15 hangups, they're like, you can have Tuesday, February 16th at 6 p.m. I'll take it. And that's kind of how it was. But anyway, one of the first things this guy said to me when I first sat down with him, he says, do you have a friend who wants to go into partnership with you? And I was like, funny you should say that, Kevin. As a matter of fact, yes, that's exactly what's happening in my life currently. He says, don't do it. He said, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to end up doing almost all the work, and it's not going to end well. And I was like, not what I was hoping to hear, Kevin. And it's funny because I even told my friend, I was like, listen, bro, Kevin's a little suspicious of our relationship here. And he's like, oh, no, man. But anyway, that's exactly how it went. It was time and time and time again. Things were needing to get done. Person didn't show up. And I was just constantly feeling disappointed. But it was something that I was kind of doing to myself. Because after a couple of times, you see the pattern. You see where people are at. And it was my own fault for continuing to expect something differently. But in this equation, my friend Kevin represents your own intuition. That was years ago. Now I can sense that with people. I can sense that with jobs. I can sense that with almost anything. And I imagine you can too. And a lot of times it's so perplexing because you think like, man, this is so perfect on the surface. I must be misinterpreting the energy or something. How often does that happen? How often do you get these intuitive hits that you end up being wrong with? Rarely. I know for me, there's many times I ignore my intuition and then it bites me in the butt. So anyway, I would say just use this full moon as an opportunity to see things more clearly. Whether this relates to you in relationships or some area of your life, or you're within yourself, maybe patterns within yourself, maybe you've been lying to yourself. That's something we all do. And it's one of those things, no one wants to admit that. No one wants to admit they're lying to themselves. It's a very embarrassing thing to admit, and yet we lie to ourselves all the time. And it's not going to fly anymore. We're going to continue playing out the same old cycle until we finally take action upon what we know in our hearts to be true. And theme number 3 is going to sound bad, but please stick around because it's not all bad. But I bet you relate regardless. Loneliness. Loneliness. If you're here, if you understand, if you're relating with any of the stuff I said, you can go and see why you might be lonely, because most people don't think like this. Most people don't talk like this. Most people don't experience this type of stuff. And here you are. All this growth, all this awareness, self-awareness, healing, seeing. It's like you're almost always seeing your life and people and those in your reality differently. You start to see them differently and differently and differently and differently every time you kind of take these leaps in your own conscious awareness, and this just keeps happening. So it's kind of a lonely thing for a time. I remember there was a time when I finally, what I kind of described sort of loosely earlier of friends dropping off essentially, that happened one after the other, until it got to a point when it was just me and my children, my young kids, and my wife and my dogs. And that was it. And like you, I was going through so many cool things. I was having a spiritual awakening. I was learning about extraterrestrials and the other side. And I was connecting with my spirit guides. All these totally badass things were happening. I was fascinated about what was happening on the planet. I could finally see the planet is shifting. The planet's going through we're going through this massive quantum leap in human evolution. And no one seems to know. No one seems to care. It's just me. Am I nuts? I knew I wasn't nuts though. And it was just lonely. I was like, oh my God, my wife's getting sick of me talking about this stuff. I just wished I had a buddy, somebody I could really just connect with. And I would sometimes try to call my old high school friend to be like, hey, just so you know, what do you think? I try to get them to see it the way I did. And it never turned out well. They probably thought I was just freaking wacko. And then eventually once I realized this is not going to work. You're not going to get your needs met that way with those guys. No offense. You're here, I suppose, by yourself. going through all this cool stuff. And though you want to share about it, there's no one to listen. Just you. And I got to a point where I just accepted it. I finally was like, okay, well, I can't keep hoping to meet somebody cool, meet somebody I'm going to really vibe with. I can't, because I kept getting like disappointed basically. So I got to this place in my journey where I just accepted. I came to a genuine acceptance that I'm not a guy who's going to have any friends. And then lo and behold, maybe a little while longer than I would have hoped had passed. And eventually my buddy now, Aaron Dowdy, he found me on YouTube and he reached out to me. And I'll never forget when we first talked on the phone. I remember leaving the phone conversation. It was like 9 or 9:30 at night. I know the kids were getting ready to go to bed. And I was like, I was just so like energized. I was like, what just happened? Something crazy just happened. I just had this connection with this random dude, another YouTuber. And I don't know what this is, but this is like a vibrational match or something. And I felt like for the first time in a long time, I like connected on a real level where we basically had the same story. We saw the world the same thing. We are both just total Bashar nerds, which is a very rare hobby as an extraterrestrial channeler. And we just nerded out on stuff. But it was more than just having similar interests. It was more like a soul harmony. I know this soul. He knew my soul. And from then it was like, wow, I have a brother. That's how it feels with Aaron. Like he's like a brother. We're so close that when he's like stressed about something kind of insignificant, I can feel it in my body. And I'll sometimes reach out to him and check on him, and he'll do the same for me. And we're always right. We're that synced up. So my point is, don't lose hope, my friends. You just keep doing this work. A lot of times, what kind of does have to happen for this sort of cool experience to have this like soul family reunion, if you will, is you have to stop settling. For the longest time, I was settling for relationships that I knew weren't going to satisfy my needs or my expectations. And I was just like setting myself up for constant disappointment, blaming them when all the while I knew better. And then for a while, I had to kind of dig into the loneliness. The loneliness is probably like not desired by most of you. And I don't blame you because it's sad. It's like depressing a little bit being lonely. But I realize now in retrospect, I needed that phase of my life to be lonely, to find out who I was. It's hard to know who you are when you go through a spiritual awakening. You start to realize, I don't know who I am at all. I have no idea who I am. And it can take some time to figure out who you are. And until you know who you are, obviously you can't really behave as such. Most people just play these characters, and we do too, to an extent. And I found this loneliness phase to be really important to really, to go deep within yourself and to really take the time to explore like possibilities of who you might be. Because you might feel like you know who you are less than when you began your spiritual awakening, and that's good. It's probably, it's more accurate. But now from here, you can start to kind of figure it out. And it's not something you just learn and say, oh, I'm this part. This is who I am. It's not really even another identity per se. It's more so you get familiar with your own, I want to say like passion, purpose. Those are the type of energies that I think have led me to having more awareness anyways of who I am, really pursuing them. And like, even though that energy can be kind of vague, where you have like this passion, you don't know what it exactly is. You have this sense of purpose, but you definitely don't know what the hell that is. But I'm saying having the willingness to explore. And then through action, you get clarity about who you are, what you're into. And then over time, as this awareness grows and grows, you start behaving more and more like your true self. And then, if you're a law of attraction person, you realize you're putting out into the cosmos then finally an accurate depiction of who you are, a vibration that's actually representative of who you are, rather than who you thought you were, which will only attract, of course, like in the end, loving learning lessons from the universe to show you this is not who you are. This is not who you are. This is not who you are. So it's like it's almost like this inevitable metamorphosis we got to go through if we really expect to attract true friends. We have to stop settling. We have to embrace the loneliness. We have to embrace the unknown and accept, I don't know who I am, but you know what? I'm going to do my damnedest to figure out who that is. Whether it takes me a day or a year, I'm going to begin that journey. And the cool thing is, you can find a great deal of satisfaction in just that. I was pretty content, honestly. I'm very happy I met Aaron and other friends that have come along, but I was a grateful guy when I met Aaron, because I was so just charged up and invested in my purpose and my passion. And I got so much satisfaction out of coaching people and making YouTube videos and pursuing the things I loved, because I took the time to find out what those actually are. There were things I thought were my passions, but in the end weren't. For example, growing medical marijuana. That was something I did on 3 different occasions in my life. Each occasion getting like more lengthy to by the end, it was like my business. It was a career of mine. And in the end, I realized, on one hand, there was a joy for it, I would say, but it was never actually my true calling, my true passion, my true zone of genius, my true purpose. But again, I took the time to find out what it was. And that's where a lot of you might be. A lot of you, I would suspect, are having people drop off. You're probably also feeling quite lonely. And you're also probably wanting to find your passion. Good. This is like the exact recipe you need, my friend, to really start to get to that point where you will start to not only find your purpose, find your passion, but attract the soulmate relationships that you deserve to have. Number 4, coming into your own. Now, I know a lot of you are probably hearing that and feeling like, Victor, I'm not coming into my own at all. I'm being humbled by life. And that's part of it as well. Right now we're doing this we call it a conscious business accelerator. It's basically a free coaching program we're doing online for 3 weeks with about 20,000 people. And I was like watching my friend Aaron give one of his presentations. It was his turn to like do the Zoom call with a bunch of people. And this one person came up and I saw Aaron talking to this person. And the person was so happy because she just made her first YouTube video. I think it was something like that. It was her very first YouTube video. And she was like, I'm excited. I feel good about it, but it wasn't very good. Definitely not as good as yours kind of thing. But I see that person beginning her pursuit of eventual like mastery and becoming like amazing at what she does. It's part of it. When you finally find out what lights you up and then start doing that, that is what I mean by coming into your own. And I remember Aaron told this person, he said, listen, don't be hard on yourself. Aaron eventually went in to talk about his first YouTube video. And it's funny because Aaron, if you don't know, he got over 1 million followers on YouTube. He got like 1.6 or 7 million followers. It's a pretty rare accomplishment in the YouTube game. It's very impressive. But he said, you know what? My first video, it was so bad, basically. He like read it. He had like a bunch of notes, or he had a whole script, I think, like posted, like taped to his window, he said, right behind the camera. And he was kind of like, this full moon is in Virgo. And it was like so forced like that. And also, when you go to edit a video, sometimes there's an option to put in text. But when you do that, when you put the text on there, usually in the beginning, until you actually change it, it'll say some kind of stock statement. In Aaron's case, it just said first blog post. Sometimes it'll say text. Of course, ridiculous, makes no sense. But Aaron couldn't figure out how to take out first blog post. So not only was he reading notes off a window, super cringy in his dad's house, feeling embarrassed about that. It's his first video ever. It also says first blog post because he didn't even know what the hell he was doing. And look at him now. And that's what Aaron said. Aaron said, listen, that's how I started. No further along than you, dear. But the difference is I got my reps in. Aaron's made probably 2,000-3,000 videos. So naturally, he's a lot better. But when you start to take action in alignment with your calling, with your passion, your true passions, that's a path you'll stay on, likely for a lifetime. So you got time. Maybe you're like, I want to be a writer and I'm kind of somewhat, I got some skill. I love how I feel when I read a good book or a good novel. It touches my soul and I'd love to do that. But when you go to write, it's not like what you would hope it would be. It doesn't matter because if you have that love for the craft, That love will sustain you. That love will keep pushing you to write. Even if you resist it in the beginning, which many do. Many people like have a hard time getting started because it's so scary. But eventually the writing in you as a metaphor is going to take over, and you're just going to find yourself writing and writing and writing and making mistakes and having the occasional triumph interspersed with lots of failures, lots of disappointment, lots of experience, lots of wisdom, lots of learning lessons, culminating over time, maybe years for you, into this like fluidity, this mastery, this eloquence that can only come from the combination of a genuine calling and purpose and practice. So I call any part of that stage coming into your own. And hopefully me just sharing that will encourage you to begin this process. And if you allow yourself to not expect yourself to be amazing from the get-go, which makes no sense, I think you'll find a lot of joy. I didn't have a lot of joy early on because I was always chasing a particular outcome, and I sometimes look back and I miss the early days, and I realize how much I squandered that really cool and rare time. It's going to be temporary, you sucking at your craft, my friend. There's going to be and some of the thrills and highs you get within that period are priceless. You're not going to be able to top it, even when you become very successful at whatever it is you're doing. And I wish I would have known that. I wish I would have known how precious and fleeting this sort of apprenticeship phase is. It reminds me of when I first learned to ride a bike. I just shared this story, so hopefully you didn't hear it like the other day. The first time I rode a bike, you know what I did? I was at the top of my driveway, and my father had the back of my seat in his hand, and he kind of like he'd like let me kind of go down the driveway to kind of see what happened, without training wheels, obviously. And on my very first little attempt, I steered myself right into the mailbox and cracked my head open, blood everywhere. Now, what do you think my dad did? Do you think my dad yelled at me? Do you think my dad said, well, you know what? You should probably not even attempt it again because you obviously suck at riding a bike? No, he didn't. He said, all right, let's try it again and again and again and again and again. And eventually I got to a point when I was younger where I started jumping ramps. I had like a little BMX bike, and I'd go to this place called JC Park in Michigan with these huge ass dirt ramps. Some of them are like freaking 5-6 feet tall. And I'd go up there and I'd do these bunny hops and, but I can't expect that. If I would have attempted a bunny hop off a 6-foot ramp, first time out, you're cruising for a bruising. But I wouldn't expect that. No one would. But we do because with our calling, there's all this expectation that just distorts everything. So treat yourself like a father or a mother, a parent would their young child starting off something new. You can choose, if you want, to be encouraging and compassionate and supportive and patient with yourself. And if you can do that, there's joy to be had even in the beginning, even in those early awkward stages, you can still have fun. And point number 5, rebirth. All of this I've been discussing, some of it challenging, some of it hopeful, some of it probably in between, is part of this rebirthing process that we will go through from time to time. And I think in Earth's history, people, I would guess, went through these periods maybe once in a lifetime, if that. And now, because everything's changing, the vibration is raising, the planet is ascending, humanity is evolving and cleansing itself, you might find yourself going through these like massive like metamorphoses, experiences every so often, more than you would maybe expect. And it's a lot to sometimes have to make big changes or reevaluate your life or really take a really hard, close look at yourself again and again and again. But every time we're climbing higher and higher and higher, we're raising our vibration, and that will translate to every single possible, fathomable aspect of your life, improving itself in some way. But for that to be experienced, we have to break down those heart walls. We have to stop sabotaging ourselves. We have to go for it. We have to be willing to step outside of the comfort zone. We have to be willing to trust the universe If the universe is taking you into a lonely phase, trust that. There's a purpose for that. There's a flip side to that, and you know this. And all of this combined, in however way in particular it's playing out for you, it's going to result in you being more you, less distorted by your past, by the trauma, by the conditioning, by the heaviness that's been weighing down on you vibrationally speaking. You're finally rising above it, breaking free, breaking through into more of yourself, uncovering more of your essence, more of your light, and now allowing it to manifest out there, creating an amazing life for yourself. That's what all these insane full moons are trying to do. They're trying to make us conscious. They're trying to help us heal. They're trying to help us let go. They're trying to help us come into our power, come into our purpose. And this full moon is like a good epitomizing that sort of overarching effect flawlessly. Anyways, my friend, thank you so much for watching. If you feel stuck, if you are having a hard time with the full moon and you feel like there's some stuck emotion or something, I'm going to share with you, and I haven't done this in a couple of videos, a free somatic release breathwork ceremony. This is something I've done for over 10,000 people. It's a powerful healing ceremony using music and your own breathing. And normally I charge money for these things, or you can only do them at events or retreats or things of that nature. But this one is a recording of one I've already done, and you can have it completely for free if you'd like. I'll leave a link down below. You just put in your email address and I'll send it right to you in your email, and you can have it forever and you can do it in your own time. It's a very powerful experience. My gift to you, and I wish you well on your path. Thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Much love.